Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, this is Tracy Stuckrath with Thrive Meetings and Events and the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where you're listening today. Thanks for being here, and I'm excited. It was a beautiful fall weekend here in North Carolina, and I am ready to talk about food and beverage once again with people who get it. On today's show, I am excited to have Abby Borden, who is the founder or owner and principal of Table Set Go in Los Angeles. She is an event producer who specializes in food and beverage, a woman after my own heart. I'm so excited. She was named in 2019 by Special Event Magazine as a young professional to watch. She's done senior catering coordinator for the Grammy celebration and a local LA producer for the James Beard Foundation, which is all foodie related. She credits her parents for early exposure to a diversity of cuisines and cultures that have cultivated her love of food and hospitality. She has fed 5,000 VIPs in one night and she's also a freelance consultant to event teams, caterers, and restaurants across LA. Hey, Abby, how are you?
Good morning. It's great to be here. I'm good.
Good. Well, before we delve into everything about safety and inclusion and food and beverage, I had this nice quiet weekend in North Carolina, and you just got off, which almost feels like a normal weekend with food and beverage. Tell us.
Yeah. This weekend just happened to be a weekend for foodies in LA. And yesterday I was looking on Instagram and there were more events that I didn't know about that were going on. So how it all landed in the same weekend, I don't know. But we started with Friday, Resi, which is the reservation booking similar to Open Table. They hosted a drive-through. Oh, and they featured 10 restaurants in LA. And it was all 10 restaurants, 10 tasting courses, all from your car. So I found like-minded individuals. So I had 4 foodie friends in our cars. We went together, masks on, to the drive-through, and we were greeted with hand sanitizer and masks from Hedley and Bennett. And, we were off, and it felt like the log ride at Disneyland. Like you just go and then you stop. And then they told you about a dish and it came to your window and everyone was able to eat it in the car. And then we moved on to the next. It was very memorable during this time, for sure.
So your car moved per course?
There were 5 stops and each stop was 2 restaurants.
Okay.
And they gave us it must have been like 10 minutes for each one.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I loved about it is that they had a website that you went to, and it had a playlist for every course, and it was introduced by the chef who told you about the food and why they chose it for this menu. And then they curated like a song to go with the dish, which was really fun.
That is very fun. Like old music, new music, current music. What was it?
Whatever I think they thought would go well. I think there was a little Jimi Hendrix, Barry White, some oldies, but then there was definitely some newer things as well.
Okay, cool. And did you actually get to watch a movie because you were at a drive-in?
No, it was just drive through the experience.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And how many people got to do it?
I don't know. They did sell out both Thursday and Friday night.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you're not sitting back, relaxing in your chair. You're just all, what do you do in the driver's seat? You've got to sit back a little bit.
Yeah. So I was in the driver's seat. I was in the driver's seat because I had the biggest car. We were advised to have as much room as possible. And being in events, you have a big car. Right. And my good friend Kelly happened to be in the passenger side, and she did not know that this was coming. But so we pull up to the first stop, and you had a choice of like beverages, and they expedited everything through her window. So then she distributed it amongst her car. But she's great at that. She's worked in restaurants for a long time. This was her ball game. So I think it was one of the first stops with food. They handed us a big tray that was big enough to sit in your lap. And then you kept that through your drive. So yeah.
And did they collect that at the end?
No, we kept them. And I think some friends, so I have a chef friend, Julian, and my friend John, they're planning to, I don't know, paint it, get creative with their little tray that they got. So they were very excited about the little gift.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And was the silver, I'm going to be sustainable here. Was the silverware sustainable or?
Yeah. So everything was biodegradable. More honestly, like I feel like in events and food and beverage, we had come such a long way to reduce waste. And during this time, I mean, you do what you've got to do. But everything came in a little package container, and then the silverware was bamboo, and it wasn't the kind that like breaks pretty easily. It was actually like pretty robust, really nice quality.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And what did they do for those designated drivers for drinks?
There was no alcohol. So we had a choice of a peach or watermelon. I think it probably was like a lemonade, and then flat or sparkling water, care of, I think, what was this? It was a sponsorship. So, Aquapana and Pellegrino.
Okay. All right. So what is that thing that you have in your hand there?
This was the program. I don't know if it's going to be backwards in the video.
No, it looks right. Yep.
And then 10 courses.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that. And I like the roadmap to show you how to get through. And yeah.
And they actually had servers who directed you in the right direction. And it was a little bit like if you've ever been to Bubba Gump's.
Right.
And so when they have like run Forest run and stop Forest stop, and you let your server know, they had servers with paddles that said drive, and it was green, or then it was like stop. And so you knew when to pull up and when to stop.
Very cool. And then how long was the whole thing?
Maybe an hour and a half to get through the entire experience. Yeah.
And a fun night.
I knew we wanted to go. And so I seeked out my friend this was co-sponsored by American Express. Okay. So I looked for the friend with the Amex, and I was like, we're going with you because there's going to be some extra perks or something with this. And so he was very grateful that we did. So he could come along.
Yeah, those extra perks are always nice that you can get no matter what platform it is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that was your Friday night, and then you had a day of rest?
And then Saturday, I actually went and had brunch with my sister-in-law, and we went to Picnic Society, which is a pop-up by Curtis Stone of Gwen here in Los Angeles, or of, Take Home Chef fame. And actually, so this project for Curtis, they did it in 3 weeks, like from conception to execution and opening. They had 3 weeks. So they took over a space in the Grove, which is an outdoor shopping center here in Los Angeles. And Picnic Society is essentially, you go in, there's like a deli and bakery counter, and you can fill a picnic basket. So you go in, you grab your little meals, and they have some like recommended fully curated menus. Okay. So you can pick the picnic basket of your choice, and then you can go eat outside, which I think is adorable, especially now. And they do have some seating within their space. But I think, a lot of people are looking for something else to do and enjoy the weather.
Right. Oh yeah.
So
well, I'm sure LA weather right now is nice.
it is. We're having an Indian summer. I think it was like, it hit 90 yesterday.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a little warm, but yeah. Yeah. It was chilly here the other day. So it's back up into the 80s, but yeah, I'm not sure how much longer we can do this in the Northeast, but it's going to get chilly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to get chilly. And then Saturday evening, I spent preparing because there was an event on Sunday. So that felt very back to normal for me, spending a Saturday night at home prepping for an event. And on Sunday, the James Beard Foundation had their Taste America series transition to virtual. So what that looked like was they had an online broadcast of a dinner, and 20 cities participated. And in each city, they highlighted one restaurant from that city. And so if you were tuning in from Los Angeles, you got to enjoy a meal kit from Gelagetza here. But then the other cities were like New York and Philadelphia, Seattle, Nashville, etc.
Yeah. I looked at it and I was going to have to drive a couple of hours to get to attend. So I'm like, yeah, I'll hang out at home and hear from Abby.
Live vicariously through. I'm happy to.
Exactly. Yeah. So what was your role in that? And did you get to eat the food?
Oh, of course. One of the work perks, right? So I was the on-site producer. The foundation chose not to have anyone travel during this time, of course. So they had shipped all the menus and marketing collateral and things like that to me. And then the restaurant had their ingredients and some sponsor wines and Rabbit Hole whiskey were shipped to the restaurant so they could prep everything. Okay. So I put the menu packets together on Saturday night and brought them to the restaurant Sunday morning and helped the restaurant expedite and was, a guest relations person, I guess, making sure that they were picking up their kits on time. If they had any questions, making sure those dietary restrictions were taken care of. And then there was a quick VIP, which was the Capital One perk. There was a quick VIP reception from 4:30 to 5 online with the chef. And that was per city. So if you're in Los Angeles, you were talking to Bricia Lopez and Edgar Santiago. If you were in New York, you were probably talking to somebody else. And then at 5 o'clock was the national broadcast and everyone tuned in at the same time.
That's really fun. So the East Coast people were tuning in at 8 and you guys were at 5. So that's a decent, 5 o'clock is,
early dinner.
Yeah. A little bit early dinner, but it's a good, kind of party time. Because it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So you just mentioned dietary needs. So with this pre-designed menu, they still were able to manage dietary needs for it?
Yeah. The chefs, we kind of leave it to the chef's discretion. Like if it was really going to mess with the menu, but we want to let the guests know, obviously, they're, paying their ticket price or they're a donor or something like that. We want to honor that. So specifically with Gelagetza, the first course was a tostada. It was a vegetable tostada, no cheese. So it was already vegan, which was great. And then the second course was their signature. It was a crab chile relleno. Now, it was beautiful they're very well known for their black mole sauce, which was delicious. And surprisingly spicy, which I loved. But, some people don't eat shellfish. We're in Los Angeles. There's also a Jewish community here. So that, might not work so well. So they did a mushroom chile relleno. Okay. And then the chef was happy to prepare it gluten-free if needed, either way. So there were a few gluten-free requests, which we accommodated.
Oh, that's fantastic. And how many people were able to participate in that event per city?
I think that we maxed at 100 per city. In Los Angeles, we had just under 7. I think we had about 70 people participate. Okay.
That's a nice group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a nice group of people. Yeah, for sure.
And so did everybody didn't know everybody.
There were a couple pickups that they were like, hi, I'm picking up for so-and-so. And each meal kit was a meal for one, but it was like the full 3 courses, right? A full bottle of wine, a whiskey cocktail, and a whiskey sampler. So like for one person, a bottle of wine is like great,
Totally.
very generous. It was a beautiful Doe Wines Pinot Noir, which totally went with mole if I just geeked out a little second. But there were some people who were like, hi, I'm picking up for 4, or I'm picking up for 6, which I'm assuming they probably had friends together, or, they were sharing or something. And when they picked up, they each got a big, it was one of those tote bags with the, oh my gosh, it's like refrigerated insulation bag. Yeah. And so they each got one. So there was one guy who showed up and he's like, I'm picking up for 6. And I was like, great. And I put out 6 bags and he's like, all of this? And I was like, yep, like that's for you guys.
Wow.
So I'm sure they had a real treat when they saw that they got 6 bottles of wine and a fair bit of whiskey.
Totally. They'll be drinking for days. Well, hopefully for days.
It was the right crowd.
Right, exactly. Well, that sounds like a really back to normal event experience for the weekend. What did you, with those different events that you went to, what can we look at how they were done that, need to be taken on to the next level, post COVID, or as we continue with COVID, and then hopefully when it's gone, anything that you see that will transfer?
I think that, I loved that they were able to integrate food into a virtual event.
Yes.
I just love that they were able to do that. And it was really cute on the broadcast. They're like, cheers, to the screen. And I do think that even when we get back in person, I think there may be some people who won't travel, or they, for whatever reason, may still not be joining a group of people. Or, if you are preparing to attend maybe a holiday gala and you come down with a cold and you don't want to get your friends sick, I think everyone's going to be a little more conscious moving forward. A virtual element, now that we know how to do it, I think may stay, or if people are out of town or something like that, they can still participate virtually. So I think that might be here to stay. As for the Resi drive-through, I love that it's something that's recycled. It was something that was done before, and we may have thought that drive-in movies were like leaving, or the drive-through experience was of the past, but it's back. There's a Stranger Things drive-through downtown that I've heard is like opening soon for Halloween. But it's essentially like going to Universal Studios or something at Disneyland, right? Like you're driving through an experience. And I think that might be something more and more marketing teams might take on. It's just something that we can do, and we're bringing it back.
So the packaging for the one on, you talked a little bit about all 3 of them. The, standard box meals at events are so blah.
Yeah.
What, out of the 3 of those different events, can you, what was inventive and creative about each of the different packaging of that? And can those be applied to regular box lunches when we get back?
Yeah. So actually the James Beard event on Sunday, all the packaging was donated by Placon, which is a disposables company. The thing about that was it wasn't like you were getting a meal done. Chef had broken it down into segments that you could reheat it, prep, plate it up at home, which I think lends itself to a better quality outcome. Like if you had something that had, I'm just going to go really basic because then everyone will get it. Like if you had a cheeseburger and it was already assembled, reheating that burger, it's just going to be mushy, not great. You're going to lose some of the seasonings, things like that. But if it's, here's the bun, here's the lettuce, here's the tomato, the cheese, and the burger, when you put it together, it's going to be much more as the chef intended, which I think, it educates the guest about what they get when they're at a restaurant. And they also get to have an interactive element at home rather than eating from a container.
Right.
So I do like that element. As for the drive-through, it was individual servings, little tasting plates. So that's kind of the way it had to go, but it was a very nice quality that they used.
Okay, awesome. And then when you went to Curtis Stone's, the picnic, what was that in?
There were some little like plastic clamshells, I think.
Okay.
And then like the sandwiches were like wrapped in butcher paper, which was just a really nice touch. Okay. And then they had these little desserts. My sister-in-law got one in a mason jar.
Oh,
which was cute.
Well, and there's a mason jar shortage right now.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that could be a thing.
I know. Everybody is learning how to can again, just like they were learning how to make bread at the beginning of COVID. Now everybody's learning how to can.
Wow. I will also probably say that what's this new show? Like everyone's doing the home edit show on Netflix, and they have everyone's pantry is like matching. And so they have like the flour and sugar and whatever in mason jars. So I'm sure that people are like going for that look also.
Wow. Yeah, probably. Yeah. My friend, Brenda, I threw an article to her. Thrillist did a whole story on the mason jar shortage, and she does canning of jams, but she uses the little tiny ones. So she's pretty much set. The people that are using the bigger ones are the ones that are a little bit,
wow,
just freaking out that they don't have jars. Okay. So one of the, eating in a meeting is all about safe and inclusive and sustainable food and beverage. And we were chatting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about what that means. And as an event planner that's really focused on food and beverage, and actually, before I get to that question, tell everybody a little bit about how you got to where you are in becoming focused strictly on food and beverage.
Sure. So, I think I didn't know that this was a job. Like as a kid, it was not like I'm going to grow up to be this person. So, as I mentioned with my introduction, I got to travel around the world with my parents growing up, mostly in Asia Pacific. So I had tried and was brought up around a lot of different food, and wasn't really an option to be picky. And I knew in college that I wanted to work in something with creative people. So I actually designed my own major. It was called management in the arts, because I noticed that there were creative people who don't have business savvy. And then there are business people who aren't very creative. So taking that, I moved to LA. I worked at an agency for a little while. And then I wanted to get a job in the events world. Like ultimately the goal was to like work for Oprah and be able to be like, you get a gift bag and you get a gift bag and you get a gift bag. And then, I graduate and Oprah decides to end her show. So that ended there too. But I found myself landed at a catering company, and there was kind of this dynamic that the chefs were gods, of course, but sometimes that they could be rather difficult was just the general consensus. And if the chef wanted it a certain way, that's the way it was going to be, period. And I don't know. I think that coming from this management and the arts background, I just saw the chefs as their own artists, and you just had to speak to, what was important to them and value what they valued. And I found myself spending a lot of time in the kitchen. I wasn't intimidated. There was a really great camaraderie with the chefs. And so I kind of became a little bit of a chef whisperer. I took care of everything that they didn't want to handle, like the rentals or the setup or the trucking or the inventory. And they got to focus on the menu. I got to handle the client and they didn't have to talk to them, and I was just very happy in that position. And so I started at a well-known catering company in LA called Patina. Then I went on to Along Came Mary. I thought I wanted to do more production of events. So I left catering altogether. And, within a few months, I knew I immediately missed the food. My office at Along Came Mary shared a vent with the bakery. and smelling brownies every day. Definitely missed that. And so I wanted to make a return to food and events. You just couldn't keep me away. So, and again, like didn't know that this was a job, but I am lucky enough to have found a really great niche in LA. There are a lot of foodie clients, whether they work in food or they work at a studio. They're very mindful of what they're eating and who the chefs are. And, that I can keep up with that and share it.
Right.
I'm quite happy to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, and going back to the, inclusion of food, safe and inclusive food and beverage, one of the things that planners have a challenge with, and you have a really good ear for this, is chefs don't want to accommodate dietary needs, and then attendees don't give us the information. But how do we work with chefs better? I mean, do chefs really not want to accommodate us? Or, is there a way that we should communicate with the chefs better as planners to get some meals that are, meet multiple needs or are a lot more tasty than just a carrot on a plate?
Sure. I think, part of it is don't do it at the last minute. If they're on site already and they've got everything prepped, there's no way they can extract a flour from the cookie or, there's just no way they can do that. Being in touch with them at, the menu inception, I think is great. Having them in that conversation right away. If you say, hey, it's a meat and potatoes crowd, that's what they're going to write it up as. Right. I think more chefs are, if you give them the details beforehand, then they can accommodate. If you do it kind of middle, it's like any artist, like they have a vision and they're excited about that. And then once you like change it, they're like, oh, but I was really excited about what I was creating. So just keeping them in the conversation. I will say that some chefs it just depends, because in LA I have both. Some chefs are more of a rustic, the old like French way, these certain recipes that to deter from those may not work. And then some, but like also I'll go to a chef and I'm like, hi, I saw this molecular gastronomy, balsamic pearl that I would really like to put on a caprese, whatever. And they're just like, do you know how much work that is? I am not the person. How dare you? And so it's just to find the right fit for what's going on. Like if somebody's doing a really traditional meal, I'm not going to ask that same chef to do the molecular gastronomy because he has no idea what I'm talking about. And I think that's just like a bit of intimidation. It's not his specialty. And so to ask them to do something that's not their specialty, they want to do what they're known for. They want to know all the time that they're going to execute well. Right. They want everyone to be happy. Is there a secret sauce to figuring out which chef does what, or, is capable of it? Just asking some general questions? Asking questions, finding out about like where they were trained, what restaurants they may have worked in. Do they travel? What do they like to cook? And it's funny, sometimes, chefs might find themselves in a place that certainly like at a convention center or at a hotel, they might not be wanting to make the food that they're passionate about, right? They're going to do the things that are popular and are selling. And sometimes like that little spark, like, oh, you could do something different. What do you want to do? Right. They're immediately like called forth, if they have the opportunity to do something for them, because, what they're cooking at the restaurant or the hotel or whatever it might be, that's not what they're cooking at home because, it's not what makes them happy or whatever. So just to find whatever that sweet spot is. Okay. So how did you, in that feeding 5,000 VIPs in one night, how did you accommodate those dietary restrictions? I worked an event a couple of years ago that we had 7,000 people and we had 683 people with dietary requests. Sure. So I'm sure in LA you have that. Yes, we do. And so the 5,000 VIPs was the Grammy celebration. Everyone there was a recording artist or their manager or their mother, who is still very important, attending with their, nominee. So for the Grammys, we have food stations. That's the setup that we've been using for years, and it's worked out. And in the menu, we just anticipate anything and everything. And it's come down to a bit of a science that we have about 3, 4, 5 different food stations throughout the room. So it's not like, here's your stop and this is where you get your meat. Everything's, I think we have 58 buffet stations throughout this ballroom. That's the size of 3 football fields, if you can imagine. And I'm actually in heels for a fair bit of that evening. So, we'll see if we can get back there. But the stations are accommodating a full meal. So you get your main entree. We curate it so it's an entree, a side, a salad dish, and then something that's a quick nibble, like people really like the breadstick or the pita chips or something like that. And in that, within the menu, everything. So dressings are always on the side in case there's like dairy. If somebody wanted to add like a Parmesan cheese, that's also on the side. All of our menu signage is very detailed with all dietary restrictions. And then we ensure that we have all of our staff trained ahead of time. So all of the leads at every buffet station has a cheat sheet, which has every ingredient listed.
Wow.
So if any guest has a question, they're like, one that's kind of rare is soy. Like, I can't have soy sauce. And if you have like an Asian theme, that may be hard to do. But we can say like, these are the things that have the soy sauce, but here are your other items. Also within the 3, 4, 5 stations, we always have one that's vegetarian. And then we're very mindful again. The whole station might be vegetarian, but the cheese or the dairy elements are on the side. So vegans are happy too.
Okay, awesome. That it makes it so much easier. And the fact that your leads, and it helps the fact that every single server doesn't necessarily need to know, but the people they're working for directly at that station can answer those questions.
Yeah. And I will say there's one guest every year. She's very sweet. Uh-huh. I forgot the relation. I think she is like the wife of someone at a record label. Every year, as soon as the announcement comes out and the party is like set with the theme, she calls and she's like, "Hi, it's me. I just wanted to get the menu ahead of time because we don't publicize it really ahead of time. Uh-huh. And I just want to know what I'm able to eat." And we're like, "Okay, great." And I'll send her an email with like the menu and I'll highlight all of her items. Mm-hmm. And then when she gets into the room, she looks for it. And she's the one that does it. And we're very happy to take care of her. And we kind of look forward to that email. So she knows where to find her things in the room.
That's fantastic because that makes her responsible. I mean, she took it upon herself to be responsible up front by asking, but then, during that event, she's not having to go find somebody to answer all of the questions.
Right.
Makes her more of that, have that true experience without having to be quote unquote called out.
Now, I don't anticipate and I wouldn't encourage, I don't want to have 680 something people email me for their specific needs, but she feels very empowered about that. And she's just very familiar with the event and we're expecting her year after year. So that's something that we're willing to take care of.
Well, that's awesome. Okay. So one of the questions I asked you in advance was, did you have a situation of a negatively impacted or affected you and or other individuals in a group? And it was a very interesting story about a dinner party for 10. Can you, and squid.
Yeah, I almost forgot. So I was asked to do a very intimate dinner party. And the chef actually asked me to assist her. So I was happy to do that. And, the birthday celebrant said that he really loved her squidding pasta. That was the one thing that he really, really, really wanted. Uh-huh. And so the chef prepared this whole meal for 10 people with the squidding pasta. And there was a beautiful, I forgot what the first dish was. And then she's known for some of her pastry. So she did this beautiful birthday cake as well. And then what happened was, we're serving the dinner and then somebody's late and then they appear with a date, which we were like, oh, so now it's 11. Okay. So we, fine. And luckily, when I order rentals, you don't know if there's going to be a breakage or anticipating anything or whatever it might be. So I always order a few extra, and thank goodness I did. So we set the table for 11, and there you go. The date was vegan and didn't eat any seafood. So here we are with squid pasta and a number of other delicious things that she just was not going to enjoy. And then out we go with the first course, which I think did have, it was like a salad with prawns. And so we went out with it, served everyone, and then hers was without the prawns. And then we find out, there's somebody else who doesn't eat, they're pescatarian, but they don't do shellfish. And we were like, all right, great. And Chef Idalia is just so wonderful. She anticipates always. And we were at a rented home. So it wasn't somebody's home. It was a rented home. So there wasn't like really anything around either. And so Chef Idalia had regular pasta in case. And she also just thought if she ran out of squid ink pasta, maybe she'll like mix it and it would be this beautiful like black and white pasta ring. So she was ready for that. So we were able to do that. And then we had this vegan and we were like, we don't have a protein for a vegan because everything was pescatarian. We were at this rental house. It was pretty funny. And she found 2 portobello mushrooms in the fridge.
Wow. What luck.
Yeah. Lucky us. And she had her balsamic with her and, she did her whole thing and glazed them and then put them together with the pasta and some of the roasted vegetables from earlier. And she made it beautiful. But, it really makes a difference. We need to know exactly how many guests are coming, especially when it's an intimate event like that. Right. And I've even been at larger catering events that sometimes, whatever reason, like the client or will give us a lower guest count. But then when the chef knows, like, hey, we still have to feed X amount of people, you might have to do some magic in the kitchen, make things appear, right. So to always be prepared for that.
Well, we're getting to the end of our 30 minutes or maybe a little bit over. So 2 final questions. One is, sure. I'm all about food and beverage and helping that. You're in the depths of that in the behind the house. I've done that for the food festivals and things like that. But what do you want people to know really about that back of the house planning of food and beverage? And what do you wish people knew about what you do? There we go.
Sure. The back of the house, like, as I mentioned earlier, my job is to take care of everything the chef doesn't want to worry about and just anticipate that the execution of this meal and the service is going to go swimmingly. Now, if I'm at a venue and you are building a kitchen, which is 2 flights of stairs and a narrow pathway, that's not gonna be the best for the staff. And it's not just that I'm protecting the staff, but that's going to take something to get the food from that kitchen all the way to the guests. It could affect the speed. It could affect the quality. The James Beard Foundation, a few years ago, we did a dinner at Union Station, which is beautiful, that we had the dining room, but our kitchen was set up outside in a breezeway. And so there was a chef who had a scallop dish. I remember this because it was just so pivotal. He had a scallop dish and it had to arrive at the guests warm. If it arrived cold, you weren't going to get the flavor that he wanted and intended. So, we had to do plate covers. So the plates had to be ones that fit the plate covers. And then it had to be in such a way that then the staff could take that many dishes to a table so that we could feed everyone. And it's not like the last person on the table waiting for their plate. All of those details, we take that every step of the way. And so, including maybe it's a catering sales manager, if you're working with a caterer, or someone like me who's like in the middle, or if you're an event planner, it is important to talk to the chef in that back of house so that they can execute for you. Right. Again, if it's up and down stairs, by the end of the night, when you get to dessert, those staff are just going to be tuckered out. We're just not built for, that many trips up and downstairs. That's not what we do, So being mindful of all of that.
That's such an important thing. I mean, I remember I worked the Atlanta Food and Wine Festival, and the tasting tents were a block and a half away from the kitchen. And this guy, one of these chefs, roasted a whole pig, and we had to put it on a piece of wood and then transport it from the hotel on a golf cart up to the tasting tents. And it was a little bit late. So I'm walking through, me and this other person,
almost pig.
Yes, with the whole pig. And I'm going, pig coming through. And I'm like, with my back going to people, I'm like, and it was in the middle, they'd already opened the gates. And so,
right.
Yeah, those things that you have to totally take care of. And, it's nobody paid attention to it really, which is great, but it is something that it wreaks havoc on my brain and my brain here. Yeah.
And I just thought of one more thing is sometimes, a client will want a certain look for their waiters.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have the girls wear heels. Please don't. Like the number of accidents, chipped heels, twisted ankles for a look, as comfortable as they can be, please. And look, we'll put them in costumes sometimes. I did the premiere for Neighbors and we had all fraternity and sorority t-shirts and it was really fun. Sure. We will do that. But as soon as it's something that's going to impede their ability to do their job, let's not.
Very good point. Very good point. Okay. So the final question, just for fun, what is your favorite food and your favorite beverage?
Oh my gosh. My favorite food, I think we talked about this. One of my favorite memories is a family trip to North Carolina. Uh-huh. It was a Nag's Head. And me and my dad with a bucket of crabs, newspaper, Old Bay, and butter. Just so happy. Yeah. And the work that goes into that is worth every morsel of that crab. So that's definitely in my favorite food. Uh-huh. And beverage, anything with ginger beer. I'm really a fan.
Okay.
So Moscow Mule, Kentucky, Moscow Mule, Dublin Donkey is what I've heard. Irish whiskey and ginger.
Okay. What was it, that one?
Dublin Donkey is an Irish whiskey and then the ginger beer.
Okay. Awesome.
Something fun.
Well, I just love knowing you. And it's so great that there are people, and maybe it's just you, that are out there that are doing this and can help planners. Because there are planners who don't like to do the food and beverage aspect of it. And to have somebody that can really focus on that is really, really important to help streamlining it. And food and beverage is such an important part of any event. And, even going back to what we started talking to at the beginning, the James Beard Awards, they went virtual, but they still incorporated, because James Beard is all about food. They made that food element really, really important. And I love it.
It's something, food brings people together. It's something to talk about. It's a commonality. We all need to eat. Yep. Why not do it together?
Exactly. And the one quote that I always use is actually from James Beard, is that this is our common ground, our universal experience. And,
I love it.
And as whatever way we can incorporate that into it, it's really, really important. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
You're welcome.
Foodie people talking food, right?
Exactly. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.